Hi everybody, and welcome to a tutorial on basic texturing in ProBuilder. So here we're going to take a look at a pretty basic scene I've set up here. Maybe it's something like a castle wall with some wooden area at the bottom and a door, just some pretty basic stuff. You can imagine it's anything else if you want while I'm creating it here. This will just be a tutorial on the basic aspects of texturing, so using the AutoUVs and looking at how those function, how you can modify them, and in a separate tutorial we'll look at the more advanced manual UVs for UV unwrapping, etc. First in the process, we'll need to apply some materials. So you can open up the material window to show the palette of materials you have. You can also just use drag and drop, dropping materials onto items if you'd like, but the material palette is a great way to go because you can drop your materials into these slots and then quickly use the apply buttons to make it a bit simpler, and then even more quickly you can use the Alt 1, 2, 3 hotkeys based on the number that it shows here to the left of the material. So again, drag and drop your materials into those slots or just open it up from the picker button there and drop it in either way. Setting this back to the default prototype for now, one of the best features of using ProBuilder in Unity is you can apply multiple materials per object. So you can apply them directly per face. For example, if I select, let's say, all of these faces that are supposed to be the stone texture, and I actually don't have to click on each one individually because I have set a vertex color here, I can go ahead and click on select by color, and it automatically selects all those faces with that vertex color. So that's just one more reason to use those vertex colors. They're really a great tool. Anyway, with that selected, I can open up my palette, or actually I don't even need to. I can keep that closed as long as I know that number 2 is the brick and number 3 is the wooden texture that I have. So I can hit Alt 2 and apply that brick texture just to those faces. I can do the same for the bottom faces. Select one of those, click on the select by vertex color, and then Alt 3 happens to apply my wood plank texture. Again, that just lines up in the slots here in the palette. So I've applied my textures. Looks pretty good. Obviously, though, we need to make some edits. If we look at the wood texture down here, some of these aren't actually going in the right direction, or the grain on the wood. Maybe we want to make these, the brick here, a little bit larger, the texture show a bit larger, and we have to work on the door still. So let's look at the simple parts first. Number 1, down here on the wood, we want to rotate this a bit. So I'll open up the UV editor, and I don't need to actually deal with any of the complex stuff going on here. We'll stick with the basic tools for the AutoUVs. So I can change the rotation pretty quickly if I'm looking under the transform area. We'll just go through that. That's the most basic tools here. So number 1, the easiest way, just turn on the in-scene controls. So you can click right there on that triple arrow button in the toolbar. And now I can use the standard Unity controls. So that's just move, rotate, and scale. Let's go to rotate and rotate these around. I can hold Control to snap, just like in Unity. And I could also move that back and forth if I wanted to, or even scale it up and down. Let's just undo the scale and the move. We didn't need that. We have that rotated correctly. I can run around and do that to any other faces that also need it. So this one, for example, and also this one. I think this would be the last, these two here. Of course, I can select multiple faces at once. Oops, gotta hold Control so I can rotate those exactly. And one last one over here. Something to mention, you might be noticing these faces will not highlight when you are in the in-scene editing mode. That's because normally when you are editing these faces, you want to be able to see the texture without the highlight. If you turn off in-scene editing, notice now that that highlight comes back. So let's turn that off and take a look at some of these other surfaces. We could probably modify the brick surface. Something like, again, turning my scene controls back on, scaling that up or down. And we might, but it looks like we actually want to take a look at grouping these faces first. So pretty clearly, as I'm moving these, we can see that they're separate, actually really clear if I scale them or rotate them. So we want to group those together so that they work as one, or they look like one single face. First, let me undo each of those edits. Instead of editing, I could actually just type in exact values. So I want to make sure the offset is back to 0 and set my tiling back to 1 for each of these. And the same goes for rotation. If you set it here, of course, you can just type in a different value. So I said I wanted to take these two faces, and again I'm turning off the scene editing so I can see the selection, and I'd like them to work as one single face, or to be treated as one when being textured. So I can scroll down here and set group selected faces, and now they're a group. So if I select one, and let's go back to our scene editing and rotate it, now I can rotate it as one, or even scale it as one. You'll also notice that now they're seamless, so they come together perfectly at the edge here. And once again, I'll quickly undo those edits. We don't actually want that rotated all over the place, of course. Oops, 0 rotation. Go back to geometry editing, and if I select, let's actually use verts, grab these here and move this, you'll see that even though we've made those edits, ProBuilder is automatically applying those UVs just in an automatic form. So even as I move this, those textures aren't getting skewed or stretched or anything nasty. I can also move this up, and it knows to keep those anchored and tiling properly. So that's the big benefit of using AutoUVs in ProBuilder, is that if you're creating something fairly simple like this, it's not a real organic shape, you can set those UVs once, or even not at all. You can stick with the defaults, like these haven't been edited at all, and they're still working. In this case, actually it looks great, looks perfect. For one last item, let's take a look at the door down here. So this is something that I don't actually want to tile. Let me apply the material first. So if I have both the front and back faces selected, I will open up my material palette, or if I remembered, it's actually Alt-4 I could use. Either way works, and apply that door material onto it. So this is tiling all over and not doing what I want. I want a single, or let's say I want the texture to fill up that polygon completely, just once. So I could open up my UV panel and go in here and use the manual UVs, get fancy with it, or I could use the auto UVs in the sort of this mode and try to scale and match it and get it just right, but that's going to be a huge pain, so there's no point in doing that. Let's just hit Control-Z and undo a few of those, exit the in-scene editing mode, and then let's do it the easy way. So instead of having the fill mode set to tile, I can just set it to stretch, and it automatically stretches the UVs to fit. So that's it for the basics of texturing in ProBuilder. It really is just a pretty simple process, and it should be enough to get everyone started if you're gray boxing or building pretty simple structures, surfaces, etc. Things where you just need basic automatic tiling, and we'll have another tutorial if you need to do more complex work for things like texturing your props or even character. Well, it could be a character if you're using it for that, but thinking like items, vehicles, etc., anything more complex. So thanks for taking a look, and see you in the future tutorials.